Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome to an Anything Goes Tuesday episode of Grammaticus Books. And today for Anything Goes Tuesday, we're going to do a mail haul, and then we're going to do a book haul. And we're going to start off first with the mail haul. I got a package in the mail from Chad, a friend of the channel. Chad was recently out at Howard Days in Cross Plains, Texas, the festival where they celebrate Robert E. Howard out there at the home that he grew up in. And he saw something there that he thought that he had to send to me. So he sent it to me in the mail, and it is quite a large package. I got this a couple of days ago. I have no idea what is contained in here, what Chad saw out at Howard Days that he decided to send to me. It doesn't feel like books. It feels like clothes, but it's fairly heavy. Maybe it might just be a bunch of packaging around a book, but I don't know what it is. So let's open it up and let's see what Chad sent me from out at Howard Days. All right, our handy dandy little cutting tool here. Like that. I will probably edit out a bunch of me getting into here, unless this gets opened up pretty quick. That wasn't too bad. All right, let's see what we've got. Oh, okay, it's a portfolio of some type, and there's a letter to go with it. All right. Before I left for Howard Days, I watched your El Borak video and saw your comment with Michael K. Vaughan. Given that Cross Plains Library has an actual manuscript of Three-Bladed Doom, I cannot resist grabbing a copy of the actual manuscript for you. They have the actual manuscript on display in the library. Hopefully he didn't break out and steal the actual manuscript. That would have been hysterical. The color cover page is the picture I took of it. As close to Howard's actual work as you can actually get. Looking at the manuscript copy, you can see small errors and fixes Howard made with his own hand. Very, very cool. Thank you, Chad. That sounds amazing. Oh, look at this. Here you go, on the inside of the manuscript of Three-Bladed Doom. Yeah, look at that. It looks like Chad took the time to print it all out and then put it into this binder. That is awesome. That is fantastic. Thank you for Three-Bladed Doom, Chad. I will definitely go through and check this out and read that and see where all the little the hand edits that Robert E. Howard did here on his original manuscript. Original manuscript of Three-Bladed Doom from Howard Days. Thank you very much, Chad. I really appreciate that. That was very generous. So one other thing here on this manuscript of Three-Bladed Doom that Chad sent me, you're looking at, it just dawned on me, perhaps I should have realized it right away, it dawned on me that you're looking at the original typeset off of Robert E. Howard's typewriter that he was using back in the 1930s in order to write these fantastic stories he was writing. And on here, it's really faint. I don't know if you can see it, but right between these two lines, Robert E. Howard has written in pencil a correction to be made on his manuscript here on the final story of Three-Bladed Doom. So again, just fantastic stuff. You're looking at Robert E. Howard's original typewriter typeset there. Thank you again, Chad. I really appreciate that. All right, so now let's move on to the book haul. I've got a book haul here. I've got one book that was given to me by a coworker, Trent. Trent picked this up at the Bookery. The Bookery is a fairly famous comic book shop and a pulp fiction shop here in Central Ohio. Trent goes there all the time. But he saw this vintage fantasy book here, The Mighty Swordsman, edited by Hans Stefan Sanderson. It's from 1970. It collects a bunch of sword and sorcery short stories featuring brand new, never-before-published adventures of Conan and Thongor, and also Michael Moorcock, John Brunner, and Roger Zelazny. So you've got some great heavy hitters here. But if you've got a never-before-published story of Conan, it's not going to be by Robert E. Howard, and I believe this one's actually by Bjorn Nyberg. But the reason that Trent picked this up is because the cover art on here, this just absolutely magnificent piece of cover art on The Mighty Swordsman is by Jim Steranko. Jim Steranko, the famous comic book artist from Marvel Comics, who did all those fantastic 1970s Nick Fury comic books from Marvel Comics. And I just love that cover that Jim Steranko, pardon me, has done here on this book, The Mighty Swordsman. Just beautiful stuff. It just screams Jim Steranko, especially the female swordswoman up there. That's just classic Steranko. So thank you very much, Trent, for that one. Now, the next 15 books that I've got here, I guess I've got 15 books. This is quite a book haul. They all came out of New Haven, Connecticut. The last couple of weeks, or I should say a couple weeks ago, I drove up to New Haven, Connecticut because the Peabody Natural History Museum up there had reopened after a lengthy renovation. I went up there to see the Rudolph Zallinger murals, those famous murals of the Age of Reptiles and the Age of Mammoths. And it's located, the Peabody, on the campus of Yale University in New Haven. And of course, around Yale University, which we went and walked around and took a look at it, but around Yale University, there's a bunch of bookstores, as you would expect. And I picked up some great vintage science fiction and fantasy at very, very good prices. I paid $3 to $1 for all these vintage science fiction and fantasy books. In fact, one they gave to me for free, and I'll get to that here in a second. So let's get to it, the New Haven book haul. The first one up is Bertram Chandler, The Way Back, from 1978. A little science fiction story here with a cover art by John Berkey. It's also got some interior art in it, also by John Berkey. There you go, little line, pen and ink drawings. And it sounded like a really interesting science fiction tale. I haven't read a lot of Bertram Chandler, but this sounded pretty good, about a bunch of spacemen that are trying to find their way back to Earth and having significant problems getting there. And it says here on the back blurb, but Earth turned out to be legend and myth and faith, and Grimes' rebellious crew were to enact roles already fabled before they were all born. So that sounded really interesting, so I picked that one up. The next book that I got is by Lynn Carter, and it is Invisible Death. Now, this is book 2 in the Zarkon series. I read and reviewed book 1 in the Zarkon series here last year for Garb August, where you read garbage books in August. And Zarkon, the first one, which I've got right here, The Nemesis of Evil. This was one of the worst books that I read last year in 2024. It was truly awful, but it's got a fantastic cover by Don Mates, and this has got a fantastic cover by Don Mates as well. August is right around the corner, so I thought this would make a great addition here for Garb August, this coming year's reading event, Garb August. And I'll check out Invisible Death by Lynn Carter with his hero Zarkon. Zarkon, the greatest action hero of them all. Can he defeat the Grim Reaper? Zarkon, Lord of the Unknown, and his Omega crew, and in the Invisible Death. It does have a nice cover on it, so even if the story stinks like the other one does, still got a decent cover off of that one. And that gets us to A.E. Van Vogt and the Weapon Shops of Isher. Originally published in 1951, it's actually a fix-up novel. This copy here is from 1977, and I'm going to actually review this book in its entirety here this coming Thursday. This is just an absolute classic of Golden Age science fiction, and I will do a full review of this book here this Thursday. So check out that on Thursday. And then we come to J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien with Smith of Wootton Major and Farmer Giles of Ham. I found this in one of those bookshops there in New Haven. It had a $1 price tag on it. When I brought it up to the front counter, they gave it to me for free. And the reason they gave it to me for free is because the front cover got ripped and it's been taped up. Now this book here, it was published in 1966. Let me check that out. Did I get that correct? Nope, 1969. It calls it a first printing here of 1969. I'm sure it's from short stories that were published earlier. And if you go onto eBay, the prices for this book, this exact copy here on eBay, are astronomical. And by astronomical, I mean between like 30 and 40 bucks. I don't know why. It must be hard to find, hard to come by. But it was sitting in that bookstore for $1. They gave it to me for free. It's got great artwork here by Pauline Baines. It really fits the mood of what I suspect this book is going to be about, sort of fairy tales. And it's got a bunch of interior artwork here by Pauline Baines as well. So that was a nice find. And then that takes us to The Ship of Ishtar by A. Merritt. Now, I already own this book. Neil, another friend of the channel, sent me a Ship of Ishtar copy, which I reviewed here on the channel. This has got a really nice cover. This was entirely a cover by. So that's a 1966 publication here. A 1960 publication by Avon. 1966. And then that brings us to Westward to Laughter by Colin McInnes. Now, this is a men's adventure novel. Men's adventure is not in my bailiwick, but I saw this over there in the bookstore, and it just screamed Nick from the Book Graveyard. Nick over at the Book Graveyard's got a great YouTube channel, BookTube channel. I'll link it down below. Highly encourage you to go check it out. But he specializes in men's adventure. And the back blurb on this, when I read the back blurb, I knew I had to pick this up and send it over to Nick. So here's the back blurb to Westward to Laughter. When young Alexander Nairn shipped out for the Caribbean in the middle of the 18th century, he was blissfully unaware of the mishaps and adventures that lay ahead. Fathering a bastard on a lovely slave girl, unjustly condemned to slavery himself, captivated by the teasing, tantalizing daughter of one of the most powerful men on the island of St. Laughter, terrifying escapades with a rebellious band of escaped slaves, a job as a pimp in the most notorious brothel in the West Indies. And that just said Nick over at Book Graveyard. So I'll send that over to him. This is by Panther Press, and Panther Press is a little bit of an unusual publisher to find here in the U.S. They're kind of hard to come by. I believe they're an English publisher. So I'll get that over to Nick, and hopefully Nick will read it and review it, because that sounds like an exciting men's adventure novel. Now, the next one we got up is Paul Anderson, Three Hearts and Three Lions, with a very nice Wayne Barlow wraparound cover there. I'm not a huge Paul Anderson guy, but I do hear good things about Three Hearts and Three Lions. So I'll check this one out and see if that is one of the better ones there by Paul Anderson. Paul Anderson did do a fantastic novel. I should give the man credit. He wrote The Broken Sword, which is just a fantastic fantasy and sword and sorcery novel. I do highly recommend that as one of the great sword and sorcery fantasy novels. So I'll give the man his credit. Other than that, outside of that, I've come across a number of Paul Andersons that really just didn't do it for me for one reason or another. But this one has a good reputation. If anybody's read this novel and has an opinion on it, put it down in the comments section down below. I'd love to hear it. And then we've got J.R.R. Tolkien, The Two Towers. Now, I own numerous copies of this book, but I don't own this edition with this cover here. And the cover is by, give me a second, the cover is by Barbara Remington, and I do like it. It's very colorful. It's primitive art, but it's got a ton of character to it, and I don't have any of the series with the art with Barbara Remington. Hopefully I can pick up the other two at some point. So I went ahead and I grabbed that. I paid $2 for this book, so it was a steal. And then we've got Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. This is the 1971 edition. It is a Berkeley Press book. And I've reviewed this book here on the channel, did a full review on it, but I had to read it from a library book because I didn't own this book. And then I finally saw this one out there in the New Haven bookstores, picked it up for $3. It's got a really nice sort of minimalist cover on it there with Michael, the hero, and the word grok. And I did a complete video on the word grok. And that set off a firestorm down in the comments section about what the actual meaning of the word grok is. That was highly entertaining. I like doing that video quite a bit. It generated quite a bit of commentary. And I was happy to come across this one and pick it up for a reasonable price. All right, that takes us to Andre Norton, Daybreak, 2250 AD, sort of a Dying Earth type of novel. And again, I'm not a giant Andre Norton fan, but this one looked very interesting. I believe this is 1951, 1952, actually. That's the publication date on this one. So you got a Dying Earth type of novel here in 1952. It's got a lot of great praise from the New York Herald Tribune and the Washington Post. Washington Post calls it extraordinary. I'll check this out. I'll give Andre Norton another chance, and we'll see how Andre Norton does here in Daybreak 2250. And then it takes us to another Paul Anderson book, Tau Zero. Now, Tau Zero, my understanding is this book does not have as good a reputation, certainly not as The Broken Sword or of Three Hearts and Three Lions, but this was completely and entirely a cover by. I think this is 1970 is the copyright on this. And just a fantastic little piece of artwork, a little art time capsule from 1970. And picked this up there just for that cover. I paid $2 for this book. Now, nobody knows who did the cover to this. It's not credited in the book. Even the Internet Science Fiction Database, which is just a great repository and usually has all that information collected in it for every publication of these fantasy and science fiction books. It tells you who the artist was. The ISFDB doesn't know who did it either. It gives out a probable artist, though, and the probable artist is Colin McColiak. Whoever Colin McColiak is, I've never heard of him before. But if Colin McColiak did this, bravo to you, sir. I really like it. It just screams 1970s, and that was 100% a cover buy. And that brings us back to Lynn Carter again, In the Green Star's Glow. This is the final book here in the Green Star series by Lynn Carter. I read the first book in the Green Star series last year. It was good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And this is the fifth one here that I found out in the bookshops. They didn't have any of the other ones, so I would have picked those up. It has a great cover here by Michael Whalen, and also it is filled with interior art by Michael Whalen. And I've never seen interior art by Michael Whalen before. Great line work, artwork here by Michael Whalen, illustrating through this book in the Green Star's Glow. Really good stuff. Let me find you another one here by some more of the interior artwork. Check that out. Just really great stuff. Really happy to find that. Picked it up, and again, dirt cheap. I paid $3 for that one. And then the final paperback that I picked up out there in New Haven was Dragon Slayer. It's Dragon Slayer by William King. This is a Warhammer novel. Now, this is a Warhammer novel, not a Warhammer 40,000 novel. There's a distinct difference. For some reason, Warhammer 40,000 novels just go for astronomical prices, and I mean astronomical. Just these cheap mass market paperbacks, and they start at $40 and they go up from there whenever you find them in a used bookstore. But for some reason, for some inexplicable reason, I don't know why, the plain old Warhammer books do not sell for that much. I think this one cost me $2.95. And this is the final in the Gotrek and Felix novels by William King. I will check that out, Dragon Slayer. It's a nice cover there on it. I'll check it out and I'll let you guys know what I think of this Warhammer novel. So those were all the paperbacks that I picked up out there in New Haven when I was up visiting the Peabody Museum. I also picked up 2 hardcover books. These were really nice finds. I was ecstatic to find these, and particularly at the prices that I got them. And the first hardcover that I got is a first edition of Isaac Asimov's Second Foundation, printed here in 1953 by Gnome Press. Now, this is a book club edition. It's got an interesting little artifact that came inside of the book here, and I paid $7 for this book. But it's got this Things to Come, Costigan's Needle, a little insert here from the book club edition, or from the book club, I should say. And this was contained here inside of this book here, Second Foundation. I think it may have come with from the publisher. And it's got just a great dust jacket cover art here by Binkley that just screams vintage science fiction. That's just vintage science fiction, sci-fi artwork to a T. Love it, absolutely love it. So first edition, book club edition of Second Foundation from Gnome Press. And then the other hardcover that I picked up is also a first edition. It's a first edition of The Weapon Makers by A.E. Van Vogt. This is the second in the series of The Weapon Shops of Isher. The second book there, it's by Greenberg Press. It is a first edition here from 1952. Was ecstatic to find this one. And again, I'm going to do a full review of The Weapon Shops of Isher, the first in this series, on Thursday. And I will definitely follow up with a read of The Weapon Makers. And I'll talk about this book on the channel as well. But that's it. That's my book haul. That's my mail haul, my book haul. Again, thank you, Chad, for that very generous gift. I sincerely appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. And I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.